Before we begin, a moment of silence for 47-year-old Tom Grossi, written via this AI article. He was a young man. Again, this was in the AI article. Dirty blonde hair. That wasn't in there, but I'm going to add to it. And he will be missed. So long, Tom. May we see you in another life.
Rest now, brother. We have the watch. And I'll see you in Valhalla.
And also, at least I didn't get to watch the Vikings win a Super Bowl ever, so that was nice. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. When you're dead and you still got to do predictions, Grossi. And today we are going to be breaking down and predicting every single game in NFL Week 13. And listen, we are coming down to the wire. Of course, we got 3 Thanksgiving games. We got 1 Black Friday game. And then the following week is the last week of bye weeks. And then it is a sprint to the postseason. And so we are running out of time. And with that being said, before I actually die, help get this channel to 1 million subscribers. We are currently 65,000 subscribers away. Appreciate the hell out of you. It is free to subscribe. We got a free show here with no sponsors. And so before my untimely death, feel free to subscribe. Last week, I went a very respectable 12-2, just getting a couple games wrong, that Thursday night game, and I picked the Eagles to beat the Cowboys, which brings me to a 123-54 record on the season, meaning I am back in the top 500 in the Pick'em League at 443rd place. Meanwhile, Iron Cam is still barely holding on to first place with a 132-44 record. Will anybody dethrone Iron Cam? Let's find out. Starting off, we're starting off early with the Green Bay mother-loving Packers taking on the Detroit Lions. Oh, baby. This is a game that a lot of Lions fans have been waiting for since week 1, because ever since that first week where the Packers absolutely decimated the Lions, all of Detroit was like, hey, it was a fluke game. This is never going to happen. And I just gotta say, I'm hoping this game will go just like the Thanksgiving game back from 2023. But this time, we have Micah Parsons.
What you're saying to me makes me want to fight you a little.
The Packers coming off a big divisional win against the Vikings, which the Lions couldn't do. No, but seriously, you lost to J.J. McCarthy. How do you do that? Oh, then again, so did the Bears. Guess the Packers really are the best. Sorry, got into the gloating phase. The Packers coming off a big win in which their defense dominated J.J. McCarthy. 5 sacks, 2 interceptions, and they just made J.J.'s life absolute hell. Unfortunately for McCarthy, he is in concussion protocol, and so his status is very much in doubt for this upcoming week. But the Packers on offense, they didn't have Josh Jacobs, no Matthew Golden, and on the defense, they didn't have Quay Walker. Lucas Van Ness, who did return, but was already ruled out for tomorrow as he got re-injured in Sunday's game. In addition, Savion Williams, Jaden Reed, and Carl Brooks have all been ruled out, while Keyshawn Nixon, Quay Walker, Matthew Golden, and Nate Hobbs are questionable. And if the Packers are able to even get some of those guys back, it will be a much welcome addition to both the offense and the defense. They're going to be taking on the Lions, who had their hands full with the New York Giants this past Sunday, going all the way into overtime when Jahmyr Gibbs was like, don't worry, guys, I'll just continue doing what I've been doing all day, carrying the offense, scoring another big-time touchdown. And taking a look at this game, yeah, this is a really important divisional matchup. Of course, the Chicago Bears are currently in first place in the NFC North, while the Packers are in second and the Lions are in third. And so if the Lions are able to get a big-time win over the Packers, that could change the entire dynamic of the division, as I have a feeling that it's going to come down to these two teams at the end, and we'll see how the Bears fare as well, as they have a tough game against Philadelphia. And taking a look at this game, the Lions' offensive line has not been great as of late. I know they've been dealing with injuries on both sides of the ball. Of course, their defense has been decimated with injuries, and I think the Packers could take advantage of that. And I do got to give the Lions some credit because they've been able to battle through a lot of these secondary injuries. I mean, hell, They had a really close game with the Eagles, as did we, but they allowed a whole lot of points from the Giants this past Sunday. And so I definitely do have some concerns about Detroit, especially that offensive line against our pass rush, because the Packers, they've been doing a pretty nice job getting after the quarterback. Also, Lions fans got a huge surprise today when center Frank Ragnow apparently announced that he was coming out of retirement to return to the Detroit Lions. Hopefully, it won't be tomorrow, but congrats on the Lions offensive line. It just got a lot better. The number one thing the Packers have to do here is contain Jahmyr Gibbs, which is going to be a challenge. Every single time he's either handed the ball, it's a pitch play, or even they just dump it off for a screen, he's able to take it to the house. And so that is something the Packers are going to have to be prepared for. They did a nice job stopping the run last week, but against Tyrone Tracy and the Giants, the Packers did struggle. And so it's just going to be a matter of which Packers team is going to show up. I'm sure Ford Field is going to be very loud on Thanksgiving as they try to get this divisional win. But I gotta be honest, I do think the Packers have a good shot here. Jordan Love is still dealing with that shoulder injury on his left side, which is why he had to hand the ball off the entire time with one hand. And ultimately, if that offense is able to get things going, which I pray that they do, I think the Packers should be able to win, which means that they would sweep the Lions for the first time in many years, and hopefully starting Thanksgiving off right. Then, a real intriguing game. You got your second matchup on Thanksgiving. You got the Kansas City Chiefs against the Dallas Cowboys. Both these teams getting a comeback victory this past Sunday, and both these teams are desperate for another win to stay in the playoff hunt.
And I'm optimistic. Every day, I get a little more desperate, and desperate situations yield the quickest results.
The Chiefs overcoming a 20-9 deficit in the fourth quarter to defeat the Indianapolis Colts, in which their defense really locked down on Sunday. Not only did they stop Jonathan Taylor all game, but in that fourth quarter, the Colts offense couldn't do anything. And on top of that, as we mentioned in rankings, the Chiefs actually had a run game. Kareem Hunt had over 100 yards, finally helping out Patrick Mahomes. And this is going to be a really big test against a Cowboys secondary, which is very suspect, but they have a much improved defensive line these past couple of weeks. Of course, getting Quinnen Williams from the Jets is a big boost.
A big boo.
But also getting Overshown back allows them to get after the quarterback more. They were able to put on a defensive clinic against the Eagles in that second half, not allowing them to score a single point after being down 21-0. And for the Cowboys playing at home, it should be another big game for George Pickens, and so that Chiefs secondary will definitely have its hands full. The question I have is Javonte Williams. If they're not able to lean on the run at all, is that going to make them a little bit too one-dimensional, and are the Chiefs going to be able to take advantage of that? At the same time, I do think Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice can take advantage of this Cowboys secondary, and I think this could come down to the wire. And so taking a look at this game, just because the Chiefs were able to shut down one of the best running backs in the league, I think they'll be able to do that against Javonte Williams here. And so because of that, I am going to go with the Chiefs to get this win. I just don't believe enough in the Cowboys secondary, and while their D-line is much improved, and there are a whole lot of question marks about Kansas City's protection abilities, I do think the Chiefs should be able to get this win. But either way, both these teams trying to make their way into the dance, and after this game, only one may. Then the final game on Thanksgiving, you got an AFC North showdown between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. The Bengals. I have never been in so much fear for an opposing quarterback in my life. He doesn't even play in the same conference. But Joe Burrow, I am worried about you. Joe Burrow is expected to make his return on Thanksgiving. However, it might be a little too late for Cincinnati.
So you came back to die with your city?
I came back to stop you.
The Bengals were able to hold their own for at least a little bit against the New England Patriots this past Sunday, and their defense wasn't complete and total hot garbage. And so that's nice. T. Higgins will not be playing on Thanksgiving, and so Joe Burrow will be missing one of his top targets. And honestly, it's just frustrating because the Bengals, you wanted them to be so much more, but that defense has been horrific for the majority of the season. The offense, with times it's been great with Joe Flacco, and at other times they just can't get anything going. And they're going to be taking on the Ravens, who also are having their own offensive woes, as the past few weeks, Lamar Jackson's still battling through injury. Their offense has just not looked the same. However, the good news, their defense has been looking real darn good. And even though it was a little bit close with the Jets early on that Sunday game, the Ravens were able to pull away and eventually get that win. And again, from where the Ravens defense started earlier this year, it has been a big improvement to the fact that they are not looking like the Bengals right now. They had to get a bunch of guys back from injury, and because of that, they have improved. And taking a look at this game, it's an AFC North matchup, so it could go either way. The Bengals with Joe Burrow back, I like to think is going to give them a big boost.
A big boo.
But there were times where Joe Flacco was throwing it for over 400 yards and their defense still let them down. But again, you go back to this past Sunday, the defense did a pretty nice job containing Drake May. They had a pick six, and ultimately they did lose that game, but maybe they're going to show up against a struggling Ravens offense. But in an attempt to just pick one of these teams, I do think the Ravens are a better unit right now. So while their offense is definitely struggling right now, if there's a defense where they can start getting that ball moving, it is the Cincinnati Bengals. So because of that being played at home and it's Joe Burrow's first game back from action, I got to go with the Ravens defense to take advantage here. And if Joe Burrow is somehow willing to will that Bengals team to a win, I just hope he stays safe while doing it. Then you got the Black Friday showdown with the Chicago Bears taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Bears, they've won 4 straight games as they are just finding unique ways to win. Caleb Williams played well this past Sunday against Mason Rudolph and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And while there was no Aaron Rodgers, and so technically he still has ownership, the fact that they were able to win with basically no-name linebackers because they have so many injuries on the defensive side of the ball is really impressive. However, as we've been talking about not only with Bears fans, but also with NFC North fans, we are about to see how good the Chicago Bears actually are as they are taking on a quality opponent in the Philadelphia Eagles. However, the Bears might be getting the Eagles at the right time because Saquon Barkley is banged up right now, and they're coming off a pretty bad loss against the Dallas Cowboys where they gave up 24 unanswered points. So you got to think that A.J. Brown has to be going crazy over there.
I'm a peacock! You gotta let me fly!
And for the Eagles, this has been a frustrating offense almost all season. 2 weeks before the bye, they really started picking things up. Saquon Barkley had a nice game against the Giants. Jalen Hurts was airing it out, and Jalen Hurts gets crapped on way too much on the internet. And I don't really pay attention to that a whole lot, but their offense just needs to get things going. Their ground game has been almost non-existent this season. Saquon is definitely not where he was last year, and that has shown with that offense. Of course, you throw in Patullo and pretty bad offensive play calling, yeah, you kind of get a stagnant offense. The good news is that their defense the past few weeks, besides this past Sunday, they were able to get wins because they were able to hold the Lions and the Packers to a really low score, and so their offense really didn't have to do much. Going up against the Bears, it's a unique challenge because the Bears, their offense has been able to put up a good amount of points. And ultimately, it's just going to be about that Eagles defense trying to slow down that Bears offensive attack, whether it's DeAndre Swift on the ground or Caleb Williams, who has been having himself a really nice season, into forcing him to start making some mistakes, which he hasn't made a whole lot of this year. And taking a look at this game, just because of how decimated the Bears are right now, I know they're expecting to get Jalen Johnson and folks back over the next few weeks. They're definitely going to need him for this game, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles offense does get things going because of the Bears' injuries on defense. And so because of that, I'm going to go with Philadelphia to get this win here, ending the Bears streak and hopefully allowing the Packers to be number 1 in the division. Then you got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Cleveland Browns. The 49ers, it was not a pretty game on Monday night as Brock Purdy had 3 first-half interceptions, but the good news was their defense played really darn well as the Panthers could do absolutely nothing with the football. And the 49ers, they are still fighting, even though they are decimated with injuries, especially on the defensive side of things. But the fact that they still have 8 wins this season in a very competitive NFC West, hey, it's a testament to how good Robert Saleh is and how well coached they are. The question is, can they continue to get these wins going forward as we get closer and closer to the postseason? They'll be taking on the Cleveland Browns, in which you saw Shedeur finally getting a chance to get his first start in the NFL. And honestly, he looked pretty good.
That's what we've been waiting for.
It's what we wanted all along!
And the people who hate Shedeur Sanders will say, no, he didn't do well. And the people who love Shedeur Sanders will go, no, he's underrated. And we will just fight about this for eternity. And I do not care. But yeah, the Cleveland Browns, they were able to get a big-time win over the Vegas Raiders, which... good God, Myles Garrett is a monster. He is looking to break the sack record over these next couple of weeks. They had 10 sacks against the Raiders. And now listen, the Raiders have no offensive line, and they are a very, very bad football team this season. And the Browns, they have not been a great football team either. Their offensive time has been very sluggish, and mostly because they didn't really have a quarterback to throw the football, but their defense remains one of the best in the league. And looking at this game being played in Cleveland, I actually think the Browns have a shot here. Shedeur Sanders getting his second start. I know he's been played in like 2.5 games now because Dylan Gabriel went out with a concussion. But Sanders getting another week of practice, you got to be hopeful that he's just not going to turn the ball over like Bryce Young did twice, one in the end zone. And because that Browns defense is so good, if Christian McCaffrey can't get things going, who usually is the main engine of that entire 49ers offense, I think Cleveland is going to win this football game. Also being played outside in the cold in Cleveland, yeah, I'm going to go with the Browns to get the upset here. I would not be surprised if the 49ers are able to get this win and if Brock Purdy looks better, but he is going to have a challenge going up against a very good defense. So because of that, I'm going with Cleveland for the upset win, and for the 49ers, that's for all the playoff wins. Following that, you got an AFC South showdown between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans. The Jaguars, they went into overtime against the Arizona Cardinals and continue to be one of the most confusing teams in football. One week, they'll look incredible, like when they beat the ever-living crap out of the LA Chargers, and then this past week, they went toe-to-toe with Jacoby Brissett, who, to his credit, has done a really nice job as the quarterback for the Cardinals, much better than Kyler Murray. And so, I don't want to crap all over the Cardinals, but yeah, the Jaguars, they are just infuriating to watch. I have no idea if they're good or not. They're going to be taking on the Tennessee Titans, who, hey, they were able to put up some points against the Seattle Seahawks, so that's something. And Cam Ward, he just continues to play as well as he possibly can given the circumstances of being on the Tennessee Titans offense. And yeah, I don't know. I just hope he gets some support around him because I think he could be a really good quarterback. And so while these teams are definitely not going to get along being in the same division, at least they can both come together and laugh at the Colts for choking that game away against the Chiefs. And taking a look at this game, again, who knows what version of the Jaguars are going to show up. However, I do think whatever version we do see are going to be able to beat the Tennessee Titans. They are not a great football team this year, and while there are some bright spots on the defense, and like I said, Cam Ward, and I wouldn't be surprised because of what this season is being a divisional game, if the Titans got to win, I think the Jaguars are good enough to win in Tennessee, so I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence here. Let's just hope he doesn't throw 3 interceptions. Or if he does, he throws 3 touchdowns again. Then another AFC South showdown. You got the Houston Texans taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Texans, they dominated the Buffalo Bills this past Thursday night, in which their defense got 8 sacks on Josh Allen, forced 2 interceptions, and were able to get a big primetime win, keeping their playoff hopes alive. Of course, Davis Mills has been leading that Texans offense, and it looks like CJ Stroud is going to be practicing today. They were asked yesterday about CJ Stroud, and they said that he was still in concussion protocol, but the fact that he's practicing, it looks like he is trending upwards to potentially play in this game. And I'm sure CJ Stroud is ready to get back into action after cheering on General Mills from the sideline these past few weeks. They're going to be taking on the Indianapolis Colts, who suffered a heartbreaking loss on the road against the Chiefs last week, and that was... yeah, challenging. Jonathan Taylor couldn't get things going on the ground, and while they had a 20-9 lead in the fourth quarter, they just weren't playing to win, man. They played super conservative football. They were playing not to lose, and ultimately, what happened? They freaking lost. And I do think the Colts are still a good football team. However, they do not have an easy schedule coming up. This is the first time that they got to play against this Texans defense this year, and they have another time coming up, and they got to play the Jaguars twice, who are also vying for that AFC South title. And when you look at the Colts, they've been a phenomenal story this year. Of course, the resurgence of Daniel Jones, and he's been playing well. Jonathan Taylor's playing like an MVP. It's just a matter of, can they score points against this very good defense? On top of that, if CJ Stroud plays, I think that offense should be a little bit more dynamic. And so because of that, I'm actually going to go with the Texans here. I went against my gut last week and I almost picked the Texans to beat the Bills, but I just think their defense is that good. And like the Chiefs, if they're able to shut down Jonathan Taylor, I think the Texans can win this football game. So because of that, I'm going with Houston to get the win. And if not, well then Indiana Jones can chastise me later. Then, you got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Saints suffering a loss to the Atlanta Falcons last week, in which Tyler Shuck was not the greatest, and on top of that, he was also their leading rusher, so that's how good things are going for the Saints right now in their offense. And for the Saints, yeah, it's been a problematic season. Thankfully, they didn't sign Justin Tucker, so they got out of that issue. But between missed field goals, the offense not playing well, yeah, this just seems like an evaluation year for the Saints, and they're still trying to evaluate if Shuck is going to be their guy. Meanwhile, the Miami Dolphins got to enjoy a bye week this past week, in which Mike McDaniel, I think he's still fighting for his job.
It might seem like I don't serve much of a purpose now to other people. I believe I'm still like in my infancy of what I do.
And the good news for the Dolphins is that they could actually stack up a few wins here because the next few games aren't the most difficult, but the Dolphins might be able to make it a salvageable season. But the problem with the Dolphins is that they've been wildly inconsistent all year. At times they've been just blatantly bad, except you, Devin Achane, you can never do anything wrong. And Tua has struggled with accuracy issues this year. The defense at times has looked good, and the defense at times looks like absolute crap. And here, which version of the Dolphins are we going to get? Whatever version we do get, I do think they'll be able to knock off the New Orleans Saints being played in Miami. Hopefully, after a bye week, that offense looks a little bit more cohesive. And yeah, if Tua doesn't turn the ball over and Achane can run it on the ground, I do think Miami should be able to get this win. And for Saints fans, it's almost over. Then you got the Atlanta Falcons taking on the New Jersey Jets. The Falcons, as we just talked about, they were able to knock off the New Orleans Saints. Kirk Cousins still had some magic left in him. The pass rush was looking good. We were just waiting for that, the entirety of the season. They're going to be taking on the New Jersey Jets, who, as we talked about against the Ravens, they had a respectable game, and their defense is playing pretty darn well considering they traded away Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, but it was not enough to get the win against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, though they did have opportunities to win that football game. Justin Fields, of course, no longer the starter for New Jersey. It is Tyrod Taylor, and this being played in MetLife, it could get real interesting because the Jets right now, they're ready for the draft. And the Falcons, well, they don't even have a first-round pick, so they're just playing for pride.
Help me help you. Help me help you.
And there's been plenty of talk, especially coming from Falcons fans, about hopefully a coaching regime change in Atlanta. I don't know if we're going to see that after this week, but who knows? If they lose to the Jets, maybe that will expedite things. But here, I do think the Falcons should be able to get the win. Their pass rush has been much improved this season. That is true. On top of that, if Robinson can get things going on the ground, I do think that they should be able to take care of the Jets. So because of that, I'm going with Atlanta to get the win. Is it going to do anything for their season? No, but it's the thought that counts. Then, this is actually a really tough game to predict. You got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Cardinals, yeah, coming up short against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but put together a very respectable game, though they really don't have a run game still. But Jacoby Brissett doing the very best he can to make that offense more functioning. Talking about coaching like we were for the Falcons, it seems like there are some coaching woes with the Arizona Cardinals, looking at you, Drew, offensive coordinator, because yeah, things have not been great for the Cardinals all season. They've kind of been this middle-of-the-road football team, and while they do have spurts of greatness, and I think they do have talented folks on that roster, they're just not able to put it all together, especially on offense, and because of that, they're just having a very average season. They're taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who started off the season 5-1, and have now lost their last 4 out of 5.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
The Buccaneers are a beat-up football team. You had Chris Godwin come back on Sunday Night Football, but they got their ass kicked by the Rams. Baker Mayfield screwing up his shoulder. He is questionable to play on Sunday. Though some good news is that Bucky Irving is set to return on Sunday, which will be a big boost for that run game.
A big boo.
Sean Tucker has done nice in his absence, but they need Bucky Irving back because he's just such a dynamic player. And taking a look at this game being played in Tampa, I think it's going to come down to if Baker Mayfield actually plays. If he does not play, I don't have a lot of faith in Teddy Bridgewater. And even if he does, how healthy is he going to be. And going up against a very feisty Cardinals team, I'm actually going to pick Arizona to get the upset win here. No, they can't run the ball, and we'll see if they're actually going to be able to stop the run if Bucky Irving comes back. They have the 17th ranked run defense right now. But if it is Jacoby Brissett versus Teddy Bridgewater, I'm going to give the edge to Brissett here. And so because of that, I'm going to go with the Cardinals to get the upset win. And for the Buccaneers, the good news is the Panthers lost and are probably going to lose again this week. Speaking of the Panthers, you got the LA Rams taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Rams, we just talked about them. That game was over before halftime as they were dominating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 31-7. They got an additional 3 points by the end of that game, but we didn't even need to play the second half. Yes, it was against Teddy Bridgewater, but even when Baker Mayfield was in that game, the Rams were causing them a ton of problems on defense. And for the Rams, they are one of the most balanced teams in football. They're currently the number 1 team in the NFC. They're sitting on top of their division, and things are looking pretty good for LA. On the other side of things, they're going to be taking on the Carolina Panthers, who had a chance to take control of their division on Monday Night Football.
But can you fly it, man? There's only one way to find out. No, I still can't read.
And then that did not happen. Even though they were gifted 3 interceptions by Brock Purdy in the first freaking half, Bryce Young threw an interception in the end zone. He also threw another interception later in that game, and the offense just could not get things going. I think you look at play calling, you can look at Bryce Young. They didn't get Rico involved enough, and ultimately that offense was just a lame duck on Monday night, and they lost to the 49ers. And taking a look at this game, it is not going to be any easier because the Rams are a better team than the 49ers. And considering the Rams are firing on all cylinders, I think the time for Bryce Young to emerge was last week, especially after throwing nearly 450 yards the week prior against the Falcons. And here, they're going to have a much tougher time moving this ball against this Rams defense. And so because of that, I got the Rams in a win here. I don't think the Panthers will particularly keep it close. I'll have a little bit more faith in Carolina if they make this a competitive game. But yeah, I just can't pick against Matthew Stafford right now. So I got the Rams. Then, oh God, speaking of blowouts, you got the purple incarnation of Satan, the Minnesota Vikings, taking on the Seattle Seahawks. The Vikings, yeah, they got destroyed on Sunday by the Packers. Good finally triumphed over evil. We did it, fam. But J.J. McCarthy did not have a good game. We mentioned it before. 5 sacks, 2 interceptions. The offense couldn't get anything going. They didn't even score a touchdown. J.J. McCarthy is now in concussion protocol, so we'll see if he's even going to play on Sunday. But they're going up against the Seattle Seahawks, who, yeah, Kevin O'Connell gets to see his old friend Sam Darnold again.
I've made a huge mistake.
I've made a huge mistake.
Oh, he's got to be missing him right now. The Seahawks able to continue their winning ways as they were able to knock off the Tennessee Titans. And while you would have liked that game to be a little bit more one-sided, the Seahawks have a lot of injuries on defense, and so I'm not completely blaming them. And their offense, Sam Darnold didn't throw an interception, and JSN continues to be an absolute stud this season. He's looking to break freaking records. And taking a look at this game being played in Seattle, yeah, this is going to be tough. Whether you have J.J. McCarthy, whether you have Brosmer back there, I think it's going to be a real tough time against this defensive front because the Seahawks D-line is one of the best in football right now. So yeah, I don't think the Vikings defense can contain them. I don't think the Vikings offensive line can stop them. I got Seattle winning. I don't think it's going to be pretty. And Sam Darnold, you're in a much better place now. Then, another intriguing matchup, you got the Buffalo Bills taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Bills, as we mentioned, they had a very, very rough Thursday night. Josh Allen was getting beaten up all game, got sacked 8 times, threw a couple interceptions, and while James Cook had a pretty good night, they just could not get enough going on offense as that Texans defense was all over them. On top of that, the Bills defense, it's really uninspiring, unfortunately. Their run defense is not great, and I know that they're dealing with injuries, but unfortunately, as we get closer and closer to the postseason, these issues have to be figured out, and I don't know if they're going to get figured out for Buffalo in time. But another team that's dealing with issues is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Steelers fans, you can only laugh at this point, watching your team go to an inevitable 9-8 season with Mike Tomlin. Or who knows, maybe he'll win 10 games. But the Steelers unable to get the win against the Chicago Bears, and they were very competitive. You got to give them some credit there. Mason Rudolph did the very best that he could. You didn't have Aaron Rodgers, but Pittsburgh is optimistic that Rodgers could be starting on Sunday, which would be a big boost.
A big boo.
Because he is better than Mason Rudolph at this point. But the Steelers, inconsistency, man. TJ Watt had a great play last week, but unfortunately, I feel like you haven't seen enough of him this season, and they need him to be firing on all cylinders for that defense to really reach its full potential. And their offense, again, it's inconsistent. Whether you have Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers behind center, at times Jaylen Warren or Kenneth Gainwell is running well, or at times things completely disappear and they just look terrible on offense. And taking a look at this game, I think it's going to be really darn close. If Rodgers plays, I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers are able to get a win. However, I think it's going to come down to, can James Cook run against this defense? Right now, the Steelers have the 14th ranked run defense in the league, and so if James Cook can get things going like he was able to do earlier against the Texans, I think the Bills have a good shot of winning this game. That doesn't mean that the Bills are magically saved here, but both these teams do need a win to try and stay in the playoff hunt, as both of them are trailing in their own division. But here, I'm going to have the Bills get a bounce-back win just because Aaron Rodgers' status is currently up in the air as of Wednesday. So I'm going to go with the Bills to get the win. Steelers, wouldn't be surprised if they're able to steal one away. But yeah, Buffalo, let's just hope this can turn around your season. Then, an AFC West showdown between the Las Vegas Raiders and the LA Chargers. And I gotta say, this whole Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll rivalry is feeling a little one-sided with how the Raiders are playing this year.
You were literally too stupid to insult.
Thank you.
The Raiders, yeah, they might be the worst team in football, allowing 10 freaking sacks against the Cleveland Browns this past Sunday. They have no offensive line. Genty has not saved their run game. Geno Smith is Geno Smith. And yeah, things are just, they're bad. They're really, really bad. I'm sorry, Raiders fans. They're going to be taking on the Chargers, who have gone through their own woes this season. However, they got to have a bye week last week, but their offensive line is in shambles right now. Of course, no Slater. Of course, no Joe Alt. And you just got to hope that Justin Herbert can make it through the rest of the season as they're trying to vie for a playoff spot. The good news is that it seems like Omarion Hampton is going to return sooner rather than later. He is going to be coming back to practice, and so hopefully he can see the field soon. And taking a look at this game, yeah, I don't think I can pick the Raiders for anything for the remainder of the year. The Raiders did hold their own against the Denver Broncos, and again, this is a divisional matchup, so you never know. Max Crosby might have a big game against that tattered O-line, but yeah, the Chargers are just a better football team. I don't trust the Raiders offense to do anything in this game, and while I do love Brock Bowers, I just wish he had a much better offense around him. So yeah, Chargers, they get the win. Raiders, let's just hope you nail this draft.
Blame it on me.
Then on Sunday Night Football, you got the Denver Broncos taking on the Washington Commanders. Why did this game not get flexed out? Because the Commanders aren't doing well, and look, it's time for yet another Broncos primetime game.
Powerful, I'm handsome, I'm happy. Successful, powerful, handsome, happy.
Get it out, son.
Because those primetime games are always so good. But the Broncos, coming off a bye week, they're chilling at number 2 in the AFC. They have a nice cushion in their division, and their defense is one of the best in frackin' football. The big question is going to be, is Pat Surtain going to be returning this week? As of right now, there's no information indicating that he is going to return on Sunday, but even without him, this Broncos defense should be fine. And the last time the Broncos played, they were able to knock off the Chiefs in a big win in which their offense actually played pretty darn well. And while they do get crapped on a lot because their offense at times is infuriating, the Broncos, man, they're one of the best teams in frickin' football, whether you like it or not. And they're going to be taking on the Washington Commanders, who it has been a very, very rough season for the Commanders, especially after going to the NFC Championship game last year. They have just dropped down hard. Whether you're looking at the defense, whether you're looking at injuries on offense, the Commanders just couldn't get things going this season, and unfortunately, it has led to where they currently are. And while Jaden Daniels did return to practice, apparently he is a long shot to play on Sunday night, and so we're going to see Marcus Mariota going up against this Denver Broncos defense, and yeah, I do not have a lot of faith in him. So because of that, I am going to go with the Broncos to get the win here. Their defense is just way too dominant, in my opinion, for the Commanders to really have a shot. So Denver, you get the win, getting one step closer to that number 1 seed in the AFC, and we'll see you on primetime again on Christmas. Yay. And finally, on Monday Night Football, you got the New York Giants taking on the New England Patriots. The Giants, they couldn't do one thing and defeat the Detroit Lions, which would have been just so great, but I can't have nice things. They went into overtime against the Lions after they were leading the entire game, but Jahmyr Gibbs said, no, it's okay, I'm just going to score a touchdown now. But the good news for the Giants is they finally got to fix that whole Shane Bowen problem.
We fixed the glitch. So he won't be receiving a paycheck anymore, so it'll just work itself out naturally.
We always like to avoid confrontation whenever possible.
The Giants have fired their head coach, they fired their defensive coordinator, and here's the thing about the Giants. I think going forward, there's a lot to be optimistic about. They make that offensive line better, they get Jackson Dart back next season, who by the way was a full participant in practice, and it looks like he's gonna be good to go on Monday night, but they'll also get Malik Neighbors back, they'll get Scadaboo back, and I think that offense could be pretty challenging for teams to deal with in the next upcoming season if they draft well. They're gonna be taking on the New England Patriots, who are currently sitting at the #1 spot, and they have just been dominant this season. Yes, you could look at their schedule and go, all right, they've had a little bit of an easier road than others, but Drake May has definitely taken a step. The bad news is that while they did at times struggle with the Bengals, the issue is that they have lost a couple of offensive linemen. Will Campbell's going to be out for the next few weeks as he heads to IR, and thankfully it is not as serious as they thought, and he could be returning come playoff time, but the Patriots have been a very solid football team regardless. And hell, even when they had all their offensive linemen, Drake May was still getting hit a good amount of times. And facing off against the Giants, I'm curious if Dexter Lawrence is going to play. I believe he has an elbow issue, and if Lawrence is able to get after Drake May, I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually a pretty close game. But I do think the Patriots should be able to get the win here. I believe in their defense. It's really damn solid. Mike Vrabel deserves Coach of the Year, or at least deserves to be in that conversation. And if Drake May doesn't turn the ball over, I think the Patriots should be able to get a win in Foxborough, and it will almost make up for those 2 Super Bowls. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you got winning in Week 13? It's coming down to the end, folks. The final games to be played in November, and then it's time for December football. But let me know what you think. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com, and a big shout and thank you to all the Patreons and YouTube members for supporting this channel, and thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi, and as always, go Pack Go, and RIP, because I'm dead.